Okay.
Um,
Please don't take that long.
yeah.
Yeah. You don't need.
I don't have much of a life, but I have a little bit.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
So, first off, like, what did all you guys think about this one?
I thought it was interesting. I didn't know all that stuff that happened. So.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I knew a little bit because my dad, it was kind of weird, but my dad bought me a book on the life of Richard Feynman. And he was the scientist that was kind of over the analysis of why it blew up. And like, you know, you've got all these reporters, all the press, you've got all these people wanting to know why. And basically for, you know, his presentation telling the world how it broke, he got up and he had a cup of ice water and he just got an O-ring and he dropped it in there. And then like after 2 minutes, he pulled it out and he broke it. And then another one he just had right there and it was warmer and he could stretch it. And that's all he did. He just showed the world this is what happened.
But that one, the one with the O-ring was that was
Challenger.
That was Challenger, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
and that was the first part of the case, yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, and so the one that they were talking about, the Columbia, was when the foam got damaged.
Yeah. And I thought they were the same, but I guess I learned some stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't really like make the distinction that well, but and Challenger and Columbia is kind of similar. But
yeah, because I thought it was the Challenger, but the whole time I was reading the Columbia, but
yeah, there was. I actually did some more research on it. There was actually like 5 shuttles, because I was like, how many shuttles or how many runs did they actually go on? And they actually did 92 runs by that time.
Wow.
And so they were pretty. I think that's why they were kind of complacent about, oh, it'll be fine. And the Challenger was the only one that had damage, from what I think, right? That was the one that
there were the foam strikes. I remember that, and that was.
Oh yeah, but I mean, it was the only one that blew up.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. So the Challenger was like back in the 80s, I think. And I remember seeing footage of that one where like that's one that shortly after launch it just blew up and.
Yeah. I was actually in high school when that happened.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, the Columbia is the one that was just about ready to land, and on re-entry it blew up because the leading edge was damaged.
Yeah, I mean they're both really sad because the first one everybody's so excited and we're all watching, and then they just get up there and a few seconds later it all blows up. And I mean we were watching it in our schools and everything. And the other one everybody's watching because they're coming back, you know, and they're so close to being home.
Right.
So.
I do remember one of them had like a school teacher on
that was the one that I was watching, the 80s.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it was sad, but yeah, I thought that was I thought they were a little bit too complacent with how they were, the risks that it was actually going to be probably broken apart when it came in. But
yeah, that's what I felt like. They were too risk tolerant. Basically, I mean, here's a potential threat, and some people are saying like this could really be bad, you know, and they're not really like looking into it to determine whether or not it actually is a threat. And they just really ignored it. And it's like, I don't know. I was kind of surprised at how much they ignored the potential for a disaster.
Yeah.
So I guess on this, it kind of asks us to go through a few different things. And the first one is just case facts, like what really happened, like what are the facts of this case. And I guess that's something I need to know too, because I was getting the Challenger and the Columbia mixed up.
Yeah, I mean, let me look at my paper here.
So, I mean, the foam strikes having this problem come up before was kind of a case fact, is they knew about this problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd say another one would also be like people knew that it was a big enough problem that it needed to be addressed.
Yeah.
Because it was, their name started with an R. It was like Ruko or something. Rucha. I don't know how you say their name. But they were pretty adamant that, hey, something needs to happen. And this is a lot bigger of a problem than everybody thinks.
Yeah, like the photograph, all the equipment wasn't kept up either, so their photographs were not very good.
Yeah.
But they could tell that it was pretty damaged. But they just wanted to find out more. That was like, the other thing was, it seemed like they weren't trained on what to do if there was an emergency or was a challenge like this.
Yeah.
And they didn't know who to go to and where to get the information they needed.
Yeah, one thing that struck me that was kind of weird was, when there was the moon landing and then coming back and Apollo 11 and the Apollo missions, they had that Tiger team that went and just researched everything out, did everything, and that was amazing.
Yeah.
And I think that a Tiger team would have been very helpful this time, and they kind of had something similar, but nobody really paid them much attention. And they didn't have much direction either.
Yeah, I felt like the organization was too large. They didn't know where to go. But yeah, sorry, James, what were you gonna say?
No, you're fine. Yeah, they started out saying that they didn't have the direction and everything, but also they didn't really give them much freedom to get the information that they needed to come to a conclusion. I mean, like, they organized this team to develop a conclusion as to the severity of the foam dent, basically, but yet they don't supply them with the tools and resources to get enough information to get an accurate conclusion. And so it was just like, they totally needed to. I feel like there's way too much red tape involved.
Yeah.
It's too structured for an emergency situation.
Yeah, one of my suggestions was to have like a liaison between the two groups, because there was like the mission management team that kind of led everything, but they should have been more informed about what was happening. I felt like the ones who were studying the problem were kind of afraid or didn't think they had the authority to meet with them.
Yeah, because it said in the case study that they never really talked to each other. The people in charge never talked to the people who were studying the foam strikes. And any information between the two was kind of from a third party.
Yeah.
So I feel like part of,
they either needed to meet more or have someone that kind of shared what they were all, just shared between the two groups.
Yeah. And, this might just be me kind of coming from my engineering background. It's really hard when you can see a problem, but nobody takes the time to fix it or to listen to actually know what it is.
Right.
Seeing that a little bit, and it's more company politics at that point. It's not something you can change as much, or it's kind of where you're at. Whereas if the manager is also in the engineering department, there's never going to be that problem.
And that Linda Ham lady seemed to almost take offense that they wanted to ask for stuff from the DOD. They wanted those better pictures. And so then she just canceled the request and didn't, find out why or anything.
Yeah, I felt like there's a bit of partly a pride issue, partly they didn't want to have rumors spread and stuff like that, but like here they're just all of a sudden jumping outside of the NASA organization to ask for help and for additional information, and she just like shut that down, just like, we can't do that. What are people going to think about NASA if we have to rely on others to supply us with information and stuff? So I think that was pride was part of it.
Yeah. And it seemed like people just kept saying, this is not an issue, this issue is dead, instead of like finding out more about it.
Yeah, and that's one of them is one of these bullet points is just downplaying ambiguous threats. That's what it's saying is like, what threats were there and how were they downplayed? You know, how did people react? It was like, oh, you know, it's not crucial to the mission and we've got more important things going on right now.
Yeah.
That and, you know, they'd known about these foam strikes for a long time.
Yeah, and I guess the previous missions had all landed safely, so they just were like, oh, it's happened before, it'll be okay. But they didn't really have enough information to see how big it was or how deep the damage was.
Yeah. And knew that it was bigger, but nobody knew how big, and nobody really felt comfortable kind of saying, hey, we've had this problem for a long time, but this one's bigger.
Mm-hmm.
What does it look like? You know, asking for those photos, stuff like that.
Yeah. And one guy even said, there's nothing we can do about it, so why worry about it? That's not the way to handle a problem.
No. I feel like, I mean, like they're not just floating up in space doing nothing. They have different, like, I don't know, research projects and stuff that they're doing up there. They're very busy up there. And so, like, in a way, with that one email requesting the possibility of, like, a spacewalk to go out and actually look at it, to me, that's just, like, the most, I mean, it's, like, common sense no-brainer. I mean, like, go out there, take a look at it, and see how big the hole is instead of looking at these little fuzzy photographs trying to figure out. But that email just totally got ignored, and it's just like, I mean, what's more important, these experiments that they're running or the lives of the astronauts possibly in jeopardy?
Yeah. And like with the Tiger team, they had people running 24 hours. They would take turns just thinking about how to fix it. And I think if they did something like that, they could have come up with an answer. Here.
So when did the problems with Columbia begin? I mean, I'd say as far as physical problems, it was when it got hit by a bigger chunk of foam and there was a larger hole than normal. Non-physical problems, I'd say, you know, being downplayed, those different problems being downplayed, and then management in NASA, where it wasn't a healthy location to share your ideas. You know, it wasn't exactly the best thing, you know. I don't want, what did that one person say? I'm not going to be a Chicken Little about this, you know. That's kind of signs of an unhealthy work environment as far as that side goes.
Yeah, they were afraid of it getting to the press, but they also didn't, I don't know, there's like a line of authority thing that was so strict that no one could even talk to them. So.
Yeah, I feel like they had kind of changed the culture of the entire organization. I mean, like with the Apollo 13 incident, it was all about, we have a problem, we're going to do everything we can to fix this if it's at all in our power. With this one, it's all about when's the next deadline. You know, we have a launch schedule on such a date. We don't have time to look into these foam incidents, you know. Yeah. And it's just a lot more about running the business as opposed to actually having successful missions.
Yeah. Why did the debris strikes become an acceptable risk? I think it's, you know, because they've lived with them before. Yeah, these happen. We don't know why, but they happen. And that's another thing. I didn't really understand what a foam strike was until I looked at the pictures down at the bottom. It's like other parts of the spaceship coming off and hitting the Challenger.
Mm-hmm.
Pieces of the foam of the rocket.
Okay, give me just a second. I'll let you in.
At that, I was thinking, okay, what about the rocket? What can we do to fix the rocket and not have the foam coming off anymore?
But they need the foam on there to keep it from getting too hot when it re-enters, right? So.
Well, we're talking about like, this is the foam that like, it's on like the external fuel tank, the big orange fuel tank that drops off. So there's foam on that, and there's foam kind of like between the shuttle and that tank. And so when that releases and throughout the launch, sometimes bits and pieces of that foam would fly through the air and strike the shuttle and damage the tiles that are on. So that when we're talking foam, it's not the actual shuttle wing. It's not like foam. The foam it's going to get left behind anyway, but it's falling off prematurely, basically, and striking the space shuttle and damaging the tiles.
So the tiles are the protecting?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So they basically have these thick tiles covering all the surfaces of the space shuttle that are very, very heat resistant. And that allows it to re-enter the atmosphere without burning up.
And so those were what got damaged, probably?
Yeah.
Yeah. And those had gotten damaged a few times, but none this bad, because there were like the preliminary tiles, and apparently there were some thicker, beefier tiles underneath. And that's what got damaged this time. Was those.
So yeah, I don't think they tried to find enough information out. Like they just thought it wasn't deep enough, but they needed to find out more.
Yeah. What's the root of the situation here with the Columbia mission?
Well, I think we're studying teamwork this week, so that's probably. But there wasn't a lot of teamwork happening between the groups, it seems like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that pretty well sums it up.
Just the teamwork, and nobody's able to communicate as effectively as they would have wished. How would you characterize
in the Apollo situation with the Tiger team? That organization was smaller then. It was in the 60s, I think. So, you know, they probably didn't have as much bureaucracy and stuff to deal with.
Yeah. How would you characterize the culture at NASA, both the strengths and the weaknesses? Well, I mean, for me, the weaknesses is the teamwork, obviously, and just not being able to get some critical things done. And then I also think another weakness would be focusing more on profit and the research than the safety of their employees.
And they needed to make sure that their equipment was working well, because some of their equipment that took the photographs wasn't updated, so it was really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had let some of those things slide.
Yeah, it was kind of. I also think there was probably a lot of politics because of money. You know, they're trying to keep costs down and had to please the people who were giving them money and everything. So.
Yeah, they were making a lot of promises that was going to put a lot of strain on them and everything else.
Yeah. I think they've closed this program down now, haven't they? There's no more shuttles going out.
Yeah, no more.
Kind of sad.
I know, it's weird. I mean, we have shuttles. This is what we do, whatever. And then all of a sudden they're discontinuing it and they're not replacing it. Like, what? Can they do that? Anyway.
But it is expensive, I imagine.
Oh, no.
Yeah. That, and then more private companies are starting to come in. I mean, you've got Elon Musk. He's starting to do a lot of crazy things, and I don't know if he's funded by anybody except for.
Is he the one that wants to do like trips for people? Like they paid to go and shuttle? Like he has his own. He wants to do it for business purposes.
Yeah.
I
think I read
think
something.
so. Like he's the one that sent the car into space.
Oh,
Tesla.
That's what he's kind of famous for. The other one is like his not a flamethrower. Like it looks exactly like a flamethrower, but California bans anything that can shoot flames up to 10 feet, and so he shoots 5-foot flames or something like that. He's just got a few weird, crazy things like that. But yeah, it is kind of weird how much NASA has changed and what's different.
Yeah. It'd be sad if you were an astronaut. You'd never know.
It says, for going on to the next one, if that's okay. Tell me about the people in the case that were important contributors to this mission's failure. So who were some people that made the failure, I guess?
I think Linda Ham, she didn't lead very well.
I feel like she was one of the biggest contributors. She just really shut down everything and didn't really try to find a solution and work with those people.
Yeah.
I have to look at this case study. I can't remember everybody's names.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember a few of them, and there was first off, I think whoever made all the deals with everybody saying, yeah, we can hit this deadline, and like really pushed them to that edge is responsible as well. I don't know if they were ever mentioned or not, but I think management, promising things that they couldn't meet is a big problem.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any other specific people. I mean, like the team was trying to do their job, and then Rocha, the engineer, was trying to get to the bottom of it.
They probably should have just tried to meet with Linda Ham and let her know how serious it was, though, instead of taking the route that they did by contacting the DOD and everything before they talked to her.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know what all they were doing up in space or not, but I think if the astronauts felt it was critical enough for their safety, I'm not saying they were in the wrong or anything, but if they felt something or if they thought they should have gone out, I think they should have breached protocol, but I don't know if that happened too much. I think that's a big part of it, is nobody was willing to breach protocol, even though everybody kind of knew that it could be a potential disaster.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, and I think you mentioned this earlier, Skylar, but like they have such tight restrictions with protocol and like lines of communication. Rocha was like, he had some stuff that he felt needed to be said to the higher ups. And he even typed up this email, but he decided not to send it just because it did go against those lines of communication that were already established. And so like they felt like they couldn't even really be heard.
Yeah, and then he also, this was like flight day, I'm kind of reading over him again. Flight day 5, at the end of that, he's saying, he was asking or petitioning or begging if NASA could petition for outside agency assistance. Like he had done that pretty early on, but nobody was really wanting to follow up with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Ham kind of shut that all down.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that like during that kind of the final presentation, it's like they're going along and they're researching, and the team is like, we don't have, or like we think this could really be a threat, and then it just kind of like skips to that final presentation. All of a sudden they're saying we feel like it's not a threat and probably okay. And it's like, what happened? How did that change? And I didn't really see where those details were filled in. Other than like at one point it says that they don't feel like the concerns that they may be wrong were expressed sufficiently. But I don't know. I didn't really get where that came from.
Yeah. Like someone would say, I don't think this is a concern, and then everybody else just agreed with them for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or it's like, oh, you know, it could be also in a meeting, you know, or you're trying to figure out all the data that they've collected so far and everything. And then at the end, somebody brings up, oh, yeah, we've got to figure out the foam thing. Everybody's kind of tired, kind of hungry, doesn't want to be there. Like, it's an acceptable risk. You know, that I'm not saying that happened, but I could see that as happening. It was just something that nobody wanted to deal with. And so they just swept it under the rug.
Yeah. Okay.
Who is accountable and why?
Did you read about the Challenger or the Columbia? That you were saying you read something about. Who did you
with the O-rings and stuff?
Yeah, that was the Challenger.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Okay. It would be interesting to hear what their report was after it happened, you know.
Yeah, that was Richard Feynman, and he was over the Challenger, not the Columbia, which it was kind of weird because I didn't know much about him until my dad sent me that book. And then I was like, oh, you know, it's kind of cool. It was something that put me to bed really quick. Like, oh, yeah, that is some deep stuff. Physicist, you know, I mean, I didn't understand any of it, and I was a junior in high school.
Yeah.
But coming here to BYU, Idaho, I was in the library one day, and I was in the physicist section, and there's more books on him than there are Einstein. And I thought that was really weird. And
yeah, that is good. It would have been interesting to hear what they actually said about it afterwards.
Yeah, and there's a...
I mean, what they said to reporters and stuff, you know, in their briefing.
Yeah, and there's a suggested resource. It says, research the case and share with the group how things turned out. And then it gives me a YouTube video, but I don't know if I can watch that with you guys. So I probably should have looked at this a little sooner, but I didn't know that I had to. That's my bad.
That's okay.
So let's go hit a few more. World application. So what personal experiences do you feel kind of fit this case? I mean, coming from one side or the other, what have you guys felt, if there's anything kind of like it? I mean, none of us are rocket scientists, but
right.
You know, we still have had some experiences with this.
I mean, I think there's like bureaucracy wherever you work a little bit, but you're kind of afraid to talk to different people. I work in a pharmacy department, so there's like things that they can't talk about, you know. They're doing different research and things like that. But yeah, I'm sure in any federal agency there's a lot of that, because they're probably top secret this and that, and, you know.
Yeah, But, and at the same time, you don't want to. I mean, there's already a lot of red tape around.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody wants to breach that, and nobody wants to have a whole lot more paperwork and a whole lot more problems or something that was just minor.
But when it's someone's life on the line, you know, they should
Yeah.
go over that.
Yeah.
I found it interesting that throughout the entire case, that was never even mentioned. Now, I don't know if that was reflective of the actual events and conversations that took place back then, but nowhere once did it actually mention concern for the lives of the astronauts.
Yeah. That
It
is
was-
interesting.
It was always, you know, deadlines, next launch date, and all that kind of stuff. Never once was like, you know, we have astronauts up there and their lives are at stake. You know, we really need to find out what's going on.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's actually what happened or what. I'm sure it did somewhat, but
Hmm.
I don't know. I think just like keeping priorities straight and for ourselves and
Yeah.
realizing what's really important, but also because like if we're working in teams at work or whatever, just I don't know, being able to have the ability to help others see that as well, and just kind of like, hey, take a look back. I know we're trying to maximize profits here or whatever, but let's get some priorities straight here for a minute. You know, let's kind of do a reality check.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Another thing is, I don't know how many people were on there. I don't think it ever said in this case study, like the names of anybody that was on there or how many people were on there or anything like that.
yeah, I know it mentioned the name of one or two astronauts. But I don't think
I
it
guess it
Mhm.
says very first sentence. It says the 7-member crew, and then second sentence was pilot William McCool and Commander Rick Husband. Like those are the only two names in the whole thing, and it's the first two sentences. After that,
Yeah.
it doesn't talk about them or anybody else at all.
Yeah.
I guess it would have been kind of cool to see if they even knew about anything,
Yeah, I was trying to see if there's any reports from them, and on these, these emails that come through. I don't see anything though.
The only thing I remember it mentioning was that they finally told the astronaut crew what was going on, but it's like it's hardly worth mentioning at all
Oh yeah, they
in
sent
case
that one.
you get questioned by a news reporter about the incident. We want you to be aware of it.
Yeah.
And it's like it's just a small foam strike, nothing to be alarmed about. It's happened before, so don't worry about it. But just so you know, you may get asked about it. But
Oh yeah, and it seems like all the emails to outside people were just like, "This is nothing to worry about," I think they were just so afraid of anything negative being said about the flight.
Yeah. And I don't know, how popular NASA was or anything like that in that time period. But it seemed like they wanted to keep going with whatever popularity they had. And they were really trying to get backers and supporters. They were promising a lot of things that they couldn't, just so they kind of had
Yeah.
kind of a public view. All right. I think that's kind of it. There's this suggested resource, but it's a YouTube video.
You want to just send that to us, and maybe we can watch it. I don't know.
Yeah, because I'm kind of wondering what happened as well. Conclusion. Help your group members notice the key concept from this case. I'd say key concepts would be teamwork is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if you see something wrong and nobody else is addressing the problem, it might be a good idea to speak up.
Yeah. Kind of like the courage thing. You have to have courage to disagree with people. I remember reading that in 7 Habits.
Yeah, like 20 people could be thinking the same thing, but nobody's really willing to say anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, Rocha was saying a few things, and he was kind of getting his voice out there, but he didn't have any backing from anybody. It was just him saying, "Hey, we need these."
Yeah.
And
he just kept getting shot down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like in the write-up and everything, it was asking like what suggestions you should make, and obviously I put down stuff like, you know, less red tape and formal lines of communication, and especially with emergency situations. But the last question is like, what are the risks involved if they take this advice from you? And like, okay, yeah, if they open up communication too much and anyone's able to talk to anybody and whatnot, then you could have a lot of chaos and disorganization, which isn't going to be good when you have something as complicated as launching a shuttle into space.
Yeah, but they needed less red tape between the different teams.
Right.
This is within the organization.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, like, I mean, I feel like there's a purpose to it, but they've taken it too far, and they also need to like have as part of their policy, whenever there's an emergency situation, okay, lines of communication are not quite as strict. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's feasible.
Yeah, I think.
Or not.
Oh, sorry.
I was done.
I think one of the things that I suggested was to take on kind of a concern policy like Amazon has. I mean, Amazon, Jeff Bezos, the owner, his email is free and open for anybody to email him at. And that can be a consumer, that can be somebody who works there, anything. And he reads a lot of them personally. And once he reads them, he'll just send it to the correct department and say, "Hey, what's going on?" And I think that would be, I suggested something like that would be pretty good in to have, is just set up an anonymous email. Anybody can write in it and send it to the head honchos. And that way that line of communication is always open.
Yeah. That sounds like a good idea. I also thought if they have any teams, they need to know what to do in a disaster and who to go to. You know? So they need more training on that. I think they became kind of complacent since nothing had happened for so long.
Yeah. It's like, oh, another rocket's into space.
Yeah.
I mean,
these foam chunks always come off.
Yeah, and I think another one was like, all right, we'll look into it when it lands and we can see it a little bit better.
Too late.
Yeah.
Yep. No, if you guys like reading this whole case study, have any of you seen the movie Apollo 13?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just what's that?
I have, but it's been a long time. So.
Okay. I've watched it a lot growing up. It's a good one, but like that's the Apollo 13 thing. It's just like it's a huge difference to see. And I've seen documentaries as well, and that movie's supposed to be pretty accurate to how it actually went.
Mm-hmm.
And totally different the way that team dealt with the situation and how this team did.
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah.
I don't know if they could have come up with an answer, but they didn't try very hard.
Yeah.
I'm sure it would have seemed pretty impossible to find an answer back then as well, but they didn't give up.
That's true.
I think they should have at least tried.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That and like they set up a team, and so they kind of made the attempt, but it still wasn't enough. I mean,
I was trying to find the guy who was over that Tiger team, like immediately said something is wrong. This is not like, I can't remember what he said though. It was like, everybody listen to me right now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and he was real adamant. Failure is not an option. You know, we're going to get these guys back. And like with this one, the idea just occurred to me. The space shuttle is designed to dock with the International Space Station. And like if they had gone out there and done a spacewalk and seen this thing is not capable of re-entry, they probably could have docked to the space station and just lived there and sent up the next shuttle and come back. I mean, they could have done something. And so like to just flat out say there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
That's not very scientific. Like,
Yeah. That's a good point. As if anybody would have just taken a picture or looked at it or done anything like that, things would have been very different. But
anyway.
All right. Any other last thoughts?
So I think if we want to look at that video, we can probably just go into the leader thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. If you want, I can just send it to everybody in that group email.
Okay.
In fact, if you guys want, I'll just copy it right now.
Okay. Oh, he said, Houston, we have a problem. I was like, he got everybody's attention with that.
Oh, yeah.
For 3.
I'm just going to say results of case study.
Okay.
No, it was 1.5.
All right. Everybody's got it. Well, thanks for being on today. And hope you guys all have a good week.
Okay, you too.
You too. I'll get the link out next week.
Yep.
All right. Sounds good.
See ya.
Thanks, Skylar.
Yep.
Bye.
No problem.
Bye.
Bye.